Alan Calkins from Star Hope Baptist Church, Ellsbury, Missouri. Short of starting a Christian school, what can a church do to help offset the propaganda that our children receive in public education?
Well, there's multiple methodologies that exist. One is you can encourage your families to prayerfully examine the option of home education. And there are many resources for that. They're just plethora. Also to encourage your, this is very difficult to do in city schools, but there are some hope in our more agrarian areas of the state, smaller schools, more locally operated, where that they are careful with who their teachers are that they hire. And the key areas I think to watch for are history, and what kind of history books are they reading? Are they experiencing open inquiry? We can also encourage our state to adopt an open inquiry perspective regarding science, not an either or, evolution versus creationism. We just want open inquiry where they can examine that. That's predominantly what we practice in most of our Baptist institutions, by the way. And then I think another option that exists is for churches to embrace a process of servant evangelism, where that school districts are usually strapped for cash, where that we can assist the school district with human resources, if you will, to do some things. And we don't do it to manipulate, but we do it simply because we love our kids and we love our teachers. We can honor our educators who live in our community, so that we can have a platform of communications to them about our values. And and some of them just, some of our educators, especially the younger ones, they just regurgitate what they've heard in the state classroom. And so if we can demonstrate something to them of faith, and also surround them, especially in the local community where we're surrounding them, with an insulator from those who are antagonistic toward Christianity, it certainly helps them. I think another thing that we could do, especially as a state convention, is that we're going to try to do our best to up our game a little bit about offering apologetic information to our constituents, because we don't know how to handle some of the rub that's happening in our culture, and we could offer some solutions in that area, and we're examining that as a possibility right now. I hope that helps you out. Anybody else?
Okay. This is for Dr. Duke. Can you tell us about the Manhattan Declaration, and if and why we should all sign it?
The Manhattan Declaration, first of all, let me answer that question. I'd also encourage you to encourage people to go into public education. Let's send more Christians into that environment, and let's just fill that environment with Bible-believing Christians who can also work on it from the inside. I'm real encouraged by what I see about how many evangelicals are going into journalism and media. They are going to change the face of even the dominant media in this country. I think we can do the same thing with public education. We just have to encourage our people, instead of retreating, to actually engage more, get more involved. Don't leave that ground to the people who are destroying our children and brainwashing our children. Let's send more people into that environment instead.
I think what he did is just give us an advertisement to support Christian universities, where we can produce motivated, trained, credentialed Christian teachers. Who controls the environment in the local classroom? Well, the State Board of Ed, we have all these layers of administration, but the fact is that classroom, 90% of it plus, is controlled by the teacher actually in the room. You get the right person in the room, you're not going to have a problem, all right? And so what's the key long term? Produce motivated, credentialed Christians and have them outperform everybody else so that they get the best jobs and fill those classrooms.
Is there a particular school that you have in mind?
Maybe
one better than the others?
regionally accessible, fully accredited, four-year Christian institution. I can actually name a couple of them, but I can highly recommend one in Northeast Missouri. Enough said.
Amen. Amen. All right, now there was a question for me. What was the question?
On the Manhattan Declaration.
Manhattan Declaration. The Manhattan Declaration was written by a number of the key thinkers, ethical thinkers in the country. Robbie George, professor at Princeton, Catholic thinker, incredibly gifted, intelligent man of strong conviction. You could ask him about anything other than some things about his Catholic faith, and he would give you an answer very similar to your own convictions on morality, the rule of law, and religious liberty. They created this document. It focuses on three issues, core issues for the future of the nation: religious liberty, abortion, and the other one slips my mind right, marriage. It focuses on those three issues: sanctity of life, marriage, and religious liberty, and says these are issues that we cannot retreat from. We need to support them, we need to get involved in them, we need to understand why they're so important, and we're going to work together to promote the values related to those three areas. You can read that document online, just Google Manhattan Declaration, or I think you can still go to manhattandeclaration.org as well and read the document, sign it if you feel like you can support it. I've signed it. Dr. Richard Land, our president, has signed it. We think it's a very solid document, and it's something worth getting behind.
I'm just curious, how many here have signed the Declaration? Amen. All right. The rest of you go online and read it and then sign it. Okay.
I'm Gardell Powell. I'm a member of Unity Baptist Church in Fayette, Missouri. I realize this is probably a tough question, but being as we're here at the Worldview Conference and a Christian citizen's responsibility, I've really been struggling with this lately. It looks like more and more our Republican nominee is going to be Mitt Romney. And I would like to get your all's thoughts on him being a Mormon, which I believe most of us as Southern Baptists believe is a cult. How we can support in good conscience that him over Mr. Obama, who I think most of us believe needs to be removed. So I'm struggling with this. And you gentlemen are recognized as leaders in our denomination. I'd just like to hear some of your thoughts about that, please.
Great question. Well, okay, I'm holding a microphone, so clearly I share some of your concerns. I think it's important for us to recognize that while it is true that whoever gets into the White House, the things they believe, the things they support, get a level of public attention that they wouldn't if they didn't end up in the White House. But we're not electing a theologian. We're electing a person that we believe is the best person among those who actually we have a choice from to lead the country in the direction that we believe it needs to be led. Is there a perfect candidate? There is no perfect candidate. All of them have their pimples and their scars and their different areas of weakness. But I think when it comes to choosing the leader for the nation, we need to recognize that our system of government requires citizen engagement. Somebody is going to be in the White House in 2013, right? That's a given. The question is, which of the people who are running most supports our values and is most going to help lead our country to emphasize and stress the things that we believe are most important? Now, I know how I'm going to vote when it comes to that. Okay, you have to make that decision yourselves. You have to say, okay, ultimately I have two people to choose from. Now, you can write somebody in as a protest vote. But understand, you're basically throwing your vote away. Okay? To me, there is a place for a protest vote. I usually do my protest votes in primaries, not in generals. And when the general election comes along, too much is on the line, and I need to make a commitment. I can't just say, I don't want to commit. I have a responsibility, not just to myself and my own convictions, but to everybody else who has to live under the leadership of that person. So I'm going to accept the fact that I'm going to be voting for an imperfect person, somebody who doesn't support all of my values, but I'm going to choose the best person out of the lot, and then I'm going to pray real hard.
Another one?
I would say it sounds like you're struggling with guilt of rationalization. But you know, Tuesday of this week, our executive director became no more Catholic by being on the stage with the Archbishop of the state of Missouri than the Archbishop became a Baptist by standing on that stage. But by standing on that stage in unity over an issue of great concern, we captivated the audience of the state of Missouri with a message that we agree, and they so happen to be in agreement with us. I myself have gone to the table many times with someone from the Missouri Catholic Conference to testify on one side of a piece of legislation, and many other times have been on the opposite side of the table with them. There's been times that we have killed legislation or passed legislation working with people we typically are enemies with. I've actually, on 2 occasions, have worked with the ACLU to impact legislation in the state, and on 1 occasion actually worked with Planned Parenthood to pass earmark legislation in the state of Missouri. Now, does that mean I've rationalized or compromised?
We're pulling your credentials.
I believe what Francis Schaeffer articulated in his apologetics, that we do have co-belligerents. We agree on the subject that's at hand, whether we agree on anything else or not. But we don't discount someone because they disagree with us on everything else, but we set the temperature in the room. We strive to be the ambassador of Christ, and when we have co-belligerents we can work with, that just expands our opportunity to be an ambassador of Christ within a group of people who would never normally listen to us. And we use that opportunity to serve the Lord.
I would add to that let's look at those filters that we talked about earlier, that the family, the sanctity of life, religious liberty, and then the 4th issue I think that's imperative is that this man will appoint judges. And that we have a track record on the sitting president on the kind of judges he selects. And so we're going to make a choice here, and that's what I would communicate to our people. And if I were a pastor, I'd be saying the same thing. I don't agree with his theology, certainly, but on these issues, there's some values there that I find agreement with, without telling you who I'm voting for.
All right, so here's the Bible teacher's answer. God called Cyrus in the Old Testament a Messiah, and God used him to do his work. All right? Cyrus was not a Jew, but God used him to further God's interests in the world. If God can use a Cyrus, an ancient Iranian, who made no claims of any of the things that the Jews held sacred, to do his work, then God can use anybody today, but especially those that recognize values that we affirm and that God has affirmed.
Okay. We have Don behind you.